that I'll be talking about is the dynamics and the basics of phacoemulsification. So I have no financial interests in the machines and the instruments that I have been showing over here. It's just that the ones that I use and I'm comfortable with, those are the ones that I have shown. So this is going to be a very boring class. So I'm warning you here also beforehand, because the phaco-dynamics itself is very boring to read and understand. As when I was a student myself, I felt the same. So what I would just say is that, but basics are extremely, extremely important. And therefore, don't fall asleep. And I again say, don't fall asleep. But because if you know your basics, that is only when you will be able to do surgery in the best possible way. So when we go to the phaco machine, we have three key components of the machine. That is the console, and then you have the foot pedal, and then you have the handpiece. The foot pedal and the handpiece are attached to the console. So suppose this is the console. There is the foot switch over here, or the foot pedal, and this is the handpiece. There's a cassette-based system. They have a cassette that is attached to it, and then there is a irrigation system also that is there, which determines your bottle height. So the phaco handpiece has got a couple of components. So this phaco handpiece that you see over here, it's got a piezoelectric crystal. So this piezoelectric crystal is what generates the ultrasonic power that is required to do phaco. So there's also a phaco tip. Then this tip is surrounded by a sleeve that has got a silicone sleeve. Otherwise, you will cause a lot of wound burn, stuff like that. And then there are three ports that you see. One is for irrigation, one is for aspiration, and the other one is for the phaco itself. So a very important part when you start phaco is to get a good idea of the foot pedal position. So you have to practice this before you actually enter on the human eye. So wet lab is a good idea. People who drive the cars find it much easier than the people who are non-drivers. So foot position 1 is the irrigation only. Remember that foot position 1 is the irrigation only. Foot position 2, when you shift to position 2, it is irrigation plus aspiration. Irrigation is going to accompany the aspiration part over here. Then you have the foot position 3. Now this foot position 3 is going to have irrigation, aspiration, and then the phaco also. We've got 4 dynamic components. The AFR is the aspiration flow rate. Then you've got the vacuum. Then you've got the ultrasound power. And then you've got the bottle height. I'll be discussing each of these separately. So then you've got balancing surgical forces. You've got the fluidics that is running inside the eye. You've got the ultrasound, and you've got the technique that you use. So what is aspiration? Aspiration is the withdrawal of fluid and lens matter from the eye. Okay, it's like anything. But now let's go to aspiration flow rate. It is the flow of the fluid through the tubing. So therefore, it is the amount or the speed at which the fluid is removed from the eye. I repeat, the amount or the speed at which basically you can say the fluid gets out of the eye. It is coming out of the eye. So it is measured in milliliters per minute. What does it do? It attracts the material to the phaco tip, and it also determines how fast the material is drawn to the phaco tip. So whatever is going to come to your phaco tip is going to be taken care by the aspiration flow rate. So you can see over here, whatever this phaco lens matter is going in. So this is because of the aspiration flow rate. Now then is known as followability. So what is followability is the ability to attract the material to the tip. So I'll go back to aspiration flow rate. It is the speed at which the fluid is removed from the eye if somebody asks you that. But what is followability is the ability to attract the material to the tip. Now this is controlled by the aspiration flow rate. So you need a good followability in the machine to do a good phaco. So what to do when the lens material comes too fast? If it's coming too fast to your comfort, then you will have to decrease this aspiration flow rate. So next is the vacuum. So vacuum is what? It is negative pressure or the holding pressure. Like any other, like you're using a vacuum cleaner or whatever it is the holding force that you had. This is measured in terms of millimeters of mercury. Now what does it do? It holds the material. Vacuum holding. So it holds the material, and higher is the vacuum, greater is the holding force. I repeat, higher is the vacuum, greater is the holding force. So next thing that you need to understand is occlusion. Now the occlusion, what does it mean? Like the general English term. So it means obstruction. So obstruction of the phaco tip over here. So you have to understand over here, how does the vacuum work? These are interrelated, vacuum and occlusion are interrelated. So there are two types of phaco systems that we have. So one is the peristaltic system and then is the venturi based systems. So and there are a couple of systems where you can change from the peristaltic to the venturi base. That is the Signature Pro. The Johnson & Johnson has the Signature Pro, which has this facility to do. So the peristaltic is the machine which is flow-based fluidics, whereas the venturi one is the vacuum-based fluidics. So what happens in peristaltic is, this is the important point that you need to understand, is the vacuum doesn't build up until the tip is occluded. So until that obstruction takes place, so this is the tip over here, and this material, until it gets onto this, until this gets hold, until this tip gets occluded, the vacuum will not build up. So this is a flow-based fluidics, and therefore you can say, since the vacuum doesn't build up, I am again repeating, until the tip is occluded, it is occlusion dependent. In the venturi-based fluidics, it is a vacuum-based fluidics that is used over here. So vacuum is always present, and therefore it is occlusion independent. Let's take a look at this picture over here. So this is a lens matter, suppose. So this is the phaco tip that you're using. So phaco tip, since there is no occlusion over here, there is a lot of gap over here. So therefore, in peristaltic based systems, the occlusion will not happen, as a result of which you will not be able to chop. So occlusion is something which is very, very important while chopping a nucleus. Without occlusion, you will not be able to chop. However, over here, you've got a good occlusion, good grip, that means, and therefore you will be able to chop. So next is the rise time. So rise time is the measurement of how fast the vacuum builds. Okay. It is the measurement of how fast the vacuum builds, and it is directly related to the AFR. So rise time, if you take it, is inversely proportional to the AFR. So faster the AFR, shorter is the rise time. I know a lot of people are getting confused. So let us look at this graph over here, this diagram over here. So this is the vacuum that you have. So for high vacuums, so how fast is the vacuum developing? For when you set a high vacuum, it is going to develop faster. So the rise time is going to be lesser or shorter, or it is going to be faster. For similarly, when you decrease it to 10, this vacuum over here, then it becomes, the rise time is a little bit longer. So what is surge? Now this is a very, very important thing that you need to understand. So it is a direct effect which is caused by the fluidic imbalance inside the eye. Whatever fluids, so there is amount of fluid that goes in through the eye, through the bottle or whatever that we are using, or the irrigation line, through the phaco tip only. And there is something that comes out of the eye. Now that comes out again through the phaco tip via the aspiration part of it. So if this what happens is, if this in fluid that is coming inside is lesser in comparison to the fluid that is going out of the eye, you're going to get a surge. Okay, that is the basic concept. So this occurs when the aspiration flow rate, that is the fluid rate at which it is coming out, and or the vacuum exceeds the irrigation. So it happens, most commonly it happens when you have developed a vacuum and you've caused an occlusion has happened. Okay, and this occlusion suddenly breaks. So when this suddenly breaks, it results in a surge. So this causes chamber fluctuation. It can lead to a mini collapse. It can also lead to the movement of the PC, and the deadliest of all, it can lead to a PCR, or a posterior capsular rent. So let's take a look at a video. I know it's not very clear, but just try to appreciate what you're going to see over here. Did you see what happened over here? Let's look at again. See, the AC collapsed, okay, for a momentary situation over here. So that is surge. Let's take a look at another video. Okay, so I'm doing a routine phaco over here, and this was about a grade 3 cataract or so, grade 3 to 4. And so far so good, no issues at all. And I'm just trying to finish the surgery fast without paying any attention to what is going on. So this is one of the problems that you have when you operate at very high parameters. It's rare, very rare though. So what happened over here? There is something wrong inside. Okay, so let's take a look at this again in slow motion. So this piece, when the last piece, ideally you should be reducing your parameters, injecting visco to push the thing back, but I did not do so. So what has happened over here? If you look over here, there is a posterior capsular end. So this is again surge because the amount of fluid, the rate at which it is coming out of the eye, it is exceeding the one that is coming inside the eye. So what you should do when you're doing the last phaco piece is convert to the epinucleus mode or lower settings, inject visco to push the PC back, and then you should do the last piece. For basic beginners, I'm saying. Okay, so limits, how can you limit your surge? By increasing the bottle height. Okay, you can decrease the vacuum also, and sometimes the most common cause is incisional leakage. So what is the bottle height? So adjusting the bottle height proportionally adjusts the AC depth. It functions to produce the adequate IOP to maintain the AC despite aspiration outflow as well as surge or incisional drainage. So remember, high flow rates require higher bottle height to maintain the IOP. Lower bottle height requires lower flow rate to prevent AC collapse. So this is the machine that I'm using nowadays. So this is the Infinity. So this has got built in this electronic. So what you can do, you can reduce the bottle height. You can see over here, this is the bottle height. In the basic systems like this Sovereign AMO Compact, you have to do it manually. This is the bottle height that I have kept over here. You can see over here, it's 102 centimeters of water. Okay. So what happens when the chamber shallows, when you press button 2? What is button 2 in the foot pedal? Is that the irrigation and aspiration. So when you're seeing that the chamber is shallowing, so you have to do two things. You have to increase the bottle height and you have to decrease the aspiration flow rate. So peristaltic pump characteristics, I have already explained to you about this. So now let us go to the ultrasound power and the emulsification forces. So you've got two theories that have been proposed, that is the jackhammer effect and the cavitation theory. Before we go into that, you need to know what is frequency. Frequency is how fast the phaco needle moves back and forth, and its range is around 27,000 to 60,000 kilohertz. So let's look at it this, okay? So you can look at the video over here and look at this photo over here. This is what a jackhammer in reality looks like. So it is just drilling inside, okay? So it is the direct impact of the tip of the phaco tip on the nucleus. So look over here. This is the phaco tip. This moves forward over here in this picture over here, and then it moves back. So this forward backward movement, this is called longitudinal phaco. This is present in all the phaco machines. So this is going up, forward, and then backward, forward and backward. This is the backward movement. This is the forward movement. So this is the jackhammer effect. Now there is something known as the microcavitation theory also. So what happens is the backward movement of the phaco tip produces low pressure, and this pulls the dissolved gases out of the solution, and this results in the formation of microbubbles. Now this microbubbles, so then there is forward movement of the phaco tip. This creates a zone of high pressure then, and then there's compression of the microbubbles takes place until they implode. So at the moment of implosion, they are at a very high temperature and a very high shock weight. 75% implode and 25% are too large to implode. So coming to the next part, what I had discussed is asked in Vivas, particularly in exam. Coming to the next part. Okay. Okay. So phaco tip. So there various tips have been defined. So this is a hollow titanium tip. So you've got a standard tip, Kelman balance. These are the ones that I have generally used. A standard tip is a straight tip. Then you've got a Kelman variety that you see over here, and this is the Kelman variety. See, you see the angulation that you see. And then you've got the balance tip over here. So what you need to understand is what degree tip that you want, the angle that you want in your tips. Okay. So these are the different angles that I have shown. So when you are drawing a tip over here, so suppose this is the tip. Okay. So this is the tip. The angle is drawn like this. So suppose this is what you're seeing angle, and then you draw this. This is the angle that you get. Okay. So this angle is a 60-degree angle. Over here, you can see this is the 60-degree angle. Similarly, you've got 60, 45, 30, 15, and 0 degree. Now, what happens is the most common tips that you use are the 45 and the 30-degree tips. Okay, so 45 degree has got a good cutting power, but a less holding power, and it is basically used for sculpting. Most commonly, the people use a 30-degree tip because it is a balanced. It's got a balanced cutting power and a holding power, and is also recommended for beginners. So sleeve. So this tip that you have over here, it is covered by a silicone sleeve. Otherwise, you will have wound burns. So this is made of silicone. It is to insulate the wound and also provide a fluidic pathway for irrigation. So this is what a sleeve looks like, and this is the tip that is coming out. This is a Kelman tip. Now, when you're doing FICO, remember it is important to check from where the fluid is coming out, and also that the tip is the exposed over here. So this exposed part that is outside of the sleeve is known as the exposure. So suppose if you, however you want to orient a tip, suppose if you look at my hand over here, my hand is like this, my tip was going like this. So if I want to orient my tip like this, the fluid should come from the sideways. Okay, it should come from the side and not from up and down. So that is what is going to maintain a good flowability and the flow of the fluid inside the anterior chamber. Okay, so this is the infinity tip that I'm using. Okay, so this is, if you look over here, these are the bimanual irrigation aspiration tips that you have over here. Okay, so what is stroke? So how far the phaco tip moves back and forth. Frequency was how fast it is going. Stroke is how far it is going. Okay, so what is the difference between stroke and frequency is how far the phaco tip moves, and frequency is how fast. The range of stroke is always, that is the power that you say, is 0 to 100%. Frequency can range from machine to machine, is around 27 to 60 kilohertz. So what is chatter now? So rebound, sometimes when the lens material comes to the phaco tip and it rebounds, it just goes away. That is known as chatter. So there is a rebound. It is caused when the stroke overcomes the aspiration flow rate and the vacuum, particularly in the case of dense lens. So how do you minimize this chatter? You lower the phaco power. You increase the aspiration flow rate. So you want it to go out more, increase the vacuum, and then sometimes you can use the torsional phaco. So I'll come to that later. So another mode that you need to understand is the linear versus the panel mode that is present in phaco machines. So something linear is like a car. Okay, so you're pressing the accelerator over here. So when you press the accelerator, it is going, when you press more, it is going to increase the power. So that is a linear. And then you've got the panel mode over here. So panel is like a light switch, on, off. So when you have on, you have 100% of whatever you have selected. And when you it's off, it is off completely, 0% of that selected. Generally for irrigation and aspiration, they are interchangeable. Irrigation and vacuum, you would say. So when you're doing the vacuum over here, beginners should have a vacuum of linear mode, because it's panel mode, and that will be very tough for them in the initial stage. However, phaco power is always kept on the linear mode. So what is next mode? Let us go to is the continuous mode. So continuous mode is again for the phaco power. Now we are talking about the phaco power. So when you press the foot pedal position 3, that is the irrigation aspiration plus phaco position, as you increase, the power is going to increase. So this is continuous mode. Now there are different ways to reduce the amount of phaco energy that is given inside the eye. So this energy that you give inside the eye, so you can change the technique, or you can do some software changes like the pulse or the burst mode. And then there is sonic technology, that is the torsional phaco. So what question comes up to the students over here? What is torsional phaco? So initially what happens is the normal longitudinal phaco, it goes with the phaco probe front and back. Look at my hand over here, front and back, front and back. Okay. So when you're going front, energy is used. When you're going back, coming back, the phaco tip comes back. Then what happens is that energy is wasted. So 50% of the energy is wasted in longitudinal phaco. So torsional phaco has the thing that it goes sideways like this, sideways, left, right, left, right. Okay. So this left, right movement. Okay. So you're eating the nucleus in left movement and right movement also. However, so therefore this reduces the amount, that 50% that is lost in longitudinal phaco is not lost in torsional phaco. However, you do need to remember a couple of things, that for torsional phaco, you need a Kelman tip or a balance tip. It will not work with a straight tip. Okay. So then coming to the pulse mode. So what happens is normal. So generally what happens is initially there was an equal time for power off and on. So each shot of ultrasound energy that you give is known as a pulse. Okay. Each shot of ultrasound energy is known as a pulse. So this pulse mode reduces the total amount of power that is delivered by 1/2 as compared with the continuous ultrasound. Okay, so when you go to the pulse mode, so if you say each on-off period is equal to 1 pulse, then if suppose there is 100 millisecond on, 100 milliseconds are kept as off. So 200 milliseconds means one pulse. Okay. So 1 second will have around 1000 milliseconds. That means it will have 5 pulses. So if you say there are 5 pulses, this is on, this is off, this is on, this is off. Similarly, so 5 pulses per second. So therefore, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, and this is 5 till here. So 1 second. So by decreasing the on period, you can generate actually more pulses per second. So higher the pulse rate, closer it is to the continuous mode. So there is something known as the duty cycle also. So duty cycle is the FECO on time divided by the total or the total time that you give for FECO. So it is actually independent of the actual number of ultrasound pulses per second. So if there's a 50% duty cycle, if you mention, that means 50% time the FECO is on. So let us see over here. So this is the 50% duty cycle on. Okay. So default cycle has equal periods of on and off. So 50-50 by ratio. Therefore, duty cycle is 50%. So this is 50%. This is on. This is off. Okay. Now the newer machines, whatever when they came up, they have it. You can change it to a 20% duty cycle. So 20% times it is on. 80% times it is off with the same 5 pulses per second thing. Okay. So traditional pulse, I have already mentioned, has a fixed duty cycle of 50%. It translates to 5 milliseconds of ultrasound energy per second. So coming to the next is the burst mode. So the burst mode is, see, it is kind of like a mixture, okay, over here. So this is the on time, then the off time is over here. Then this is the on time. And as you're going over here, the off time is decreasing, okay. So this, at the end of it, this becomes like a continuous mode. So what is the difference? Let's look at it again. So FECO continuous is continuous, you are giving power. FECO burst is like there's on and off time also. But as you press the pedal more and more, the off time reduces and at the end it becomes like a continuous. FECO pulses like this on off period that is kept the constant according to what you set it. So let us go to the steps. This was the dynamics. Now let us go to the steps of FECO emulsification. So you've got the incision, then you do the continuous curvilinear capsule rhexis, you do the hydro dissection and delineation. You check for rotation of the nucleus, you check, then do the FECO, then the irrigation aspiration, then the IL implantation, and finally the sealing of the incisions. So let us look at the couple of incisions that you make. So the incision, this is for the first incision is made over here. And then the second incision, it can be a side port over here. And then the third one can be the FECO probe. So when you're doing a 2.2 keratome that you used over here, remember is that it has to form a square. That forms a square. However, when you're using a 2.8, it forms a rectangle. So remember, let's look at another one. So okay, yeah. So when I'm using over here, see, there's difficulty over here. So you should not be using blunt instruments while making incisions. Otherwise, there will be some kind of DM detachment or some other complication or the other. Okay, so 1 second. Yeah. So this is how it's supposed to go. So first you can make the side port over here, inject Trypan Blue and Visco, and then you can do the continuous curvilinear capsule rhexis. What I do generally is after I make this port, I make this port. Okay. So when I'm doing topical FECO, I can use a second instrument, insert it over here, and then I can do that. Otherwise, you can also use it via limbs because you're beginning right now. So this incision is over here. Then this is the clear corneal incision that you make for FECO. So it is a rectangle when you're using a 2.8 because you will be most probably using a 2.8 in the start, not a 2.2. So this is the second instrument, this thing, incision. So this is generally 2 to 2.5 clock hours away. When you get a little bit experience, it doesn't matter if it is a little bit beyond or so. But beginning, keep it 2 to 2.5 clock hours. That will be easy for you to chalk them. So let's take a look at this over here. So this is another case that I'm doing. So this is the first incision that I have made over here. This is the second incision that I am making over here. This is a case of topical FECO. That is why I'm using buds over here. And then I'm using a second instrument to hold the guy. I have already injected OVD inside. And then I do a continuous curvilinear capsule rhexis. So you need some prerequisites for doing FECO is that you need to be able to do a good capsule rhexis. Okay. That is a basic must. So rhexis size would be about 4.5 to 5 mm or 5 to 5.5 for beginners, you can say. That is the ideal size that you would aim. It will be shorter than the one that you aim for SICS. For harder cataracts, you do need a larger rhexis. Okay. So once this is done, see again, I am injecting OVD inside the anterior chamber. And then I'm marking over here where I need to make the incision. And then I'm going, this is a two planar or a biplanar incision. I go inside and then I go dimpling motion and then I enter inside. This is not a very good incision that I have made over here. Okay. So, okay, let's look at another one. So this, what I have done over here is I'm using a LIMS forceps. So similarly, making the first incision. So this second incision that you're making for beginners, you don't need to enter fully, only small, because otherwise you will have difficult. I've entered a little bit more. You can enter less than that because you need to insert your dialer or chopper to that, and you don't want a leaking wound. And you can later on increase it when you do at the time when you're doing irrigation aspiration, particularly when using a bimanual probe. So over here, I'm making the incision. Okay, so it's done. Okay, so then coming to certain terminologies, that is sculpting or the trenching and chopping. So, okay, so let's look at the sculpting or trenching. Now, this is what you have a trench. You have to create a central gaddha or a central opening, a longitudinal one. So this is known as a trench. So the size of the trench depends on the grade of the nucleus. So generally what happens is for softer cataracts, you can keep up to 1 phacoprobe width. So suppose this is the phacoprobe width over here. So this would be 1. This width will be 1 for softer cataracts. So grade 2 about, you can say. But for harder cataracts, grade 3 or more, you would do 1.5 to even sometimes 2 phaco probe width. Okay. How deep do you go? You have to go to 80 to 90% depth of it until you start seeing this red reflex over here. So this is how you create a trench. You can create one part over here, and then you can, because initially this is created, then you rotate it, and then you can do the other part. So let's take a look at a video. Okay. So this is how you are creating a trench over here. So you know, don't go till the least location of the anterior capsule. Don't go beyond it in the beginning stages particularly. Okay, so this is what my settings are. This is over here. So this is a sculpt mode over here or a pre-phaco mode, and you can, this is a little bit more than that. We'll come to that. So whereas I had discussed over here, this is the longitudinal phaco power which you are using, and this is the torsional phaco that I'm using. The vacuum, remember, when you're trenching is very less. This is the minimum over here. Otherwise in compact, you can send to about 60 millimeters. So while trenching, remember, you do not need to hold the nucleus. So vacuum should be minimum over here, very, very minimal over here. So you need to basically have a phaco power. And also remember one thing, when you're trenching, if there is a push of the nucleus, that means your phaco power is insufficient. So increase the phaco power. So coming to the types of chops now. So you've got two types of chops. You've got the horizontal chop and then you've got the vertical chop. So horizontal chop is done like this. You have to go, once you've held it, cause an occlusion. So then what you do is you take the chopper, and what you do after that is that you bring this from the equator and then you bring it center. So this is the force from the phaco chopper. This is the force from the phaco probe. And this is called as horizontal chopping. Then there is vertical chopping. So then over here, after holding of the nucleus, after achieving occlusion, then this is embedded directly inside, and the movement of the separation of the two probes is like this. So these are the two basic types of chopping, that is the horizontal and the vertical chopping. The other types are just modifications of that. You have to understand that. So let's take a look at the video over here. So this is an example of vertical chop over here. So what I'm doing is a direct chop. I'll explain that later. But what I need to understand is where I'm using my second instrument, which is the chopper over here. So I've gone like this. And then where the location, look at the location over here. So this is a vertical chop over here. Okay. Let's look at the other piece also. So this is a vertical chop. So you get the hang of it. Okay. So this is what the settings I generally keep. Nikunj will be discussing about the settings part. These are my chopping. See, when I'm doing chopping now, when I need to chop, I need to hold the nucleus. So you need a good vacuum. So over here, you see my vacuum is increased over here. And this is for the epinucleus, that's different. But this is the chop mode I'm using. So I'm using a vacuum over here, and phaco energy is dependent on the grade of the cataract. So different techniques have been described: divide and conquer, stop and chop, direct chop, chip and flip, and crater and chop. The main three are these three ones. Okay. So let us go in divide and conquer. What you do is you create a trench over here. First trench is created like this. Then you rotate the nucleus, and then you create another trench. So this forms an X, and then you separate these pieces, and then you eat them individually. So this is the initial groove. Rotate it, create another groove over here, second groove, and then you separate these pieces and eat it. Sorry, I don't have a video of divide and conquer. It is available on YouTube and you can use it. Okay. So then you go to stop and chop. So what you do in stop and chop is you create a trench over here. And once that trench is created, it is not overtail over here. It's in the center as I had shown earlier. And then these two pieces are separated. And then when you bring it into horizontal position, then you go with the phaco probe, hold, and then you chop. So it is stopping, trenching, then you can stop it, and then you chop. Okay. So let's take a look at the video. This is not my video. Okay. So a trench is created over here. And then you can see the separation that is taking place. Okay. Okay. So once that is done, okay, and then you start eating these pieces that is there. So you realize that I first created a trench, and then those two pieces were separated, and then you start chopping over here. Okay. And then you rotate this part, the last piece that was over here, and you eat that part also. Okay. So let's look at another video. Okay. So this is what happened. This is about 3-4 days back only I had operated. So I knew I didn't get a good hold. So it's just a little bit softer side. So I said I'll do a stop and chop over here. So I've separated the two pieces. It's unequal separation, but it doesn't matter. Okay. This is a vertical chop they're doing. Okay, I'll show you a horizontal chop also in a while later. And then I'm eating this piece. Okay. So you saw I created a trench, separated them, and then I ate, and then I chopped the phaco pieces. So now what is left after this is the epinuclear. So you shift to the epinuclear mode, which has got lower vacuum, lower phaco power. Okay. And ideally at this stage, you should be shifting to a dialer instead of a chopper, especially in the beginning stages. And then you just hold it and then you rotate it a little bit so it comes into the center like this. And then you eat it up. Okay. And then next is the IA part. Okay. So you inject, always remember one thing, you inject visco before coming out. Remember one thing I forgot to say this is when you are introducing your instrument, okay, for beginning stages, you must have seen I introduced my chopper first, but you introduce your phaco probe first with irrigation on, and then when you're coming out, the second instrument comes out first, then the phaco probe comes out. Okay, so let's take a look at another case of stop and chop. So over here, what I have done is I've created a trench over here. And see, then I'm chopping those pieces and I'm eating them. Let's take a look back over here. Okay, so this trench was created. After this trench was created, you can see that these two pieces are separated. Now for this separation, you can use a phaco probe. Remember, when you're separating this, no vacuum then. Once the trench is created, when you're separating into two parts, no vacuum, only irrigation is on. And you can use two instruments. You have to use two instruments, a dialer and a phaco probe, a dialer and a chopper, two dialers, two choppers, or a phaco probe with a dialer or a chopper. So anything can be used because only you need is irrigation over here or a visco to form the anterior chamber, and then you separate it. Okay, once this is done and these two are separated, and then you chop it and you break it. Okay. Okay. So then there's the direct chop over here. So there is no trench created, directly chopping is done. That is why it is known as the direct chop. Let's take a look at the video. This is the same video that I had shown over here earlier to you. So this is what I'm doing over here is, see, there is no trench, there's no creation of trench over here. And before that, I'm aspirating any loose lens matter that is there. So I've gotten directly into the center of the lens and I have chopped it. Okay. So this is a direct chop. It's okay. So this is another example, okay, of a direct chop over here. There is no trenching, nothing that is created. This is a rock hard cataract. Again, doing vertical chop over here and this is the separation that is okay. Initially, do not do brown cataracts. The cases that you should be selecting a NS2 to NS3. Never select an NS1 also in the beginning because you will have problems. You will not be able to hold those nucleus. For that, we need a technique known as chip and flip, where you partially prolapse the lens and then eat it. Okay. So this, coming to the next part, that is irrigation aspiration over here. So I use the bimanual irrigation. So remember, see, I have gone with the irrigation cannula inside first, and then the other probe is for the aspiration part. And as you press, it has got two pedals over here. One is for irrigation and two is for irrigation plus aspiration. That's it. There's no phaco in this. This is the bimanual. The coaxial will be discussed by Dr. Nikunj because that's what he does, and this is what I use. And so then you just aspirate it. The bimanual has the advantage that you can use both hands and the other sides. And remember, when you aspirate from the periphery, bring to the center, and that is when you actually aspirate the lens. This is when I'm doing polishing of the lens over here, the anterior lens capsule. Okay, once this is done, I am injecting OVD inside before bringing out my irrigation component. Sorry. Okay, let me just see. Yeah. So then I have changed hands over here. And then I am going to aspirate this part. So this gives you a big advantage, the bimanual. So once this is done, then you go inject OVD inside and then you bring out. So let us look at this lens that you're doing. The lens loading also I'll show over here. So this is, let's see which lens it is. I don't remember exactly. Looks like an IQ probably, or a Technis. This looks like a Technis, I guess, yeah. Yeah, this is a Technis lens. Yeah. So you put the lens over here, like in this orientation only. Hold the lens, put it over here in this type of a cartridge over here, okay, and then you push it inside. And once that is done, you have to load it onto your thing. And once you inject, remember I have taken the second instrument inside the side port. You can use the limbs also, but this is more comfortable. Then you take this phaco probe inside and then you inject. Remember, when you're injecting, you have to rotate this phaco cartridge accordingly such that the inverted C comes out and goes inside the bag. And do not bring this thing out of the incision, okay? So see, this haptic I purposely showed, it got stuck over here. So then you have to again push and pull. Don't get stuck and just bring it out directly. Otherwise, there will be a problem. So over here, if you see over here, the haptic has actually flipped. Okay, the IOL has flipped. So what I'll be doing over here in such a cases, I will be first putting it inside, and then injecting some OVD inside, and then using two instruments over here and flipping this IOL in the anterior chamber. And then I put it into the bag like this. Okay. See, at the end, this is done. And then you hydrate your ports. Okay. Once the ports are hydrated, this is what it looked. The patient had a vision about 6966 next day. Okay. So this is what I use over here for irrigation aspiration. Nikunj will be discussing about. So the settings for cortex aspiration, polishing is just for cleaning up any lens matter fibers that are there at the end. Different polish requires less vacuum. And then there's the visco. Nikunj will be discussing these settings. So when you go for the foldable lens insertion, you've got two types of injectors that you have over here. So these injectors are basically two types, the push injector and the screw injector. So this is the example of the, what I showed was a push injector. This is a hydrophobic lens over here. So remember see how I've held it. The middle finger is over here at the bottom. This is the other, the index finger. And then the thumb is over here, which is holding this cartridge over here. So I've put this hydrophobic lens inside over here. And then you push it back inside into a position like this. Okay. So that it is behind this elevated area that is over here. So with the haptic also. Now the hydrophilic lenses are very easy to get caught over here when you're closing it and get stuck. So I generally keep a second instrument there inside to put it position, and then I close it. Once this is done, you can see over here that it is loaded nicely inside. And then I just go inside and I am injecting it inside the, I'm injecting without any visco, just using saline only or BSS. And this is put into the bag. Okay, I've gone. So hydrophilic I've discussed here. So this is a hydrophobic one that I'm using over here. So you see over here, I've injected visco inside. Then what I do is I bring the lens over here. This is the Alcon IQ lens over here. I put it over here to see the orientation that is there. And then I pick it up with a Kelman, McPherson forceps, sorry. And then I put it in this position like this. And then there's a pusher that you can use. And you put it inside. So this is, put it like this. And the injection is actually the similar process only, like that. Okay. So let us go for another one also. So this is the video that I'll be showing you for this. This is one of my videos only. This is a 3-piece IOL injector that I'll be using over for 3-piece foldable IOL. So you've injected visco over here. This is a butterfly cartridge over here. As I had said, the position of the fingers is the same that I had shown before. This is a 3-piece lens. See, this haptic was out. You notice that it is out. So I put it inside the injector over here. This is a screw injector that you get for this. You see, this is out right now. And then this is what a screw injector looks like. You first push it into position. It gives a snap. And once that happens, then this now see for push injectors, you can use basically 2 hands. This is a screw injector. So you have to screw it like that. So you have to use 2 hands over here, or you have to ask your assistant to do it. You see, this is the haptic that is outside over here. You need to make the incision from 2.8 to 3 over here in these injectors. And see, I'm going inside slowly I'm injecting, and basically my hand is screwing over here. Okay. Making sure that it goes into the bag. So for beginning stages, you can leave this haptic part outside also. That is what most commonly people do over here. Otherwise, you can use a dial right now, bring it inside and then load it into that. Okay. So coming to the online resources, this is the last part of the thing. So they've got wonderful channels by Dr. Arup Chakrabarti, Dr. Pradeep Mohanta. There is one by Dr. Deepak Megur, Dr. Saurabh Patwardhan, Sudhir Aiko, Dr. Sudhir from Lucknow. So they've got Orotube from Arvind Hospital, Pondicherry has got a wonderful channel. There are a lot of videos available online that you can take a look at them. These are the YouTube channels. Then you've got I've got my own channel as well, some videos on it. Yosi has got its own channel in YouTube, it's got a lot of videos as well. You can contribute videos to that as well. This is a video where you start tropical phaco. It is available on YouTube. Then there are a lot of websites over here. Dr. Saurabh Patwardhan and Dr. Deepak Megur have found this phacotraining.org.in, which is a wonderful website for which you can learn a lot from. Cataract Coach by Dr. Uday Devgan is a wonderful website for you to learn from. Then you've got iTube has got a lot of videos to see. Books that I would recommend for you to read is this Siebel's Phaco-Dynamics, the AAO, because this is the ones that are asking questions about the phaco-dynamics. These 2 books that I had also, the Dr. Harbans Lal's AIOS CME series on phaco and his book. These are excellent books. So practice makes perfect, and thank you. And I'll say sorry for exceeding my time.